I'm purposely focusing on the deficit because I don't, so my message is not diluted. I want everyone to understand this is what I'm focused on. Lee Terry will say he wants to cut the deficit, but he wants robocalls. That's what he really wants, and he wants to speed up the pipeline. He wants to become the chair of the subcommittee, on energy and commerce. That's what he really wants. In terms of programs to actually cut, what I'm proposing, and I'm trying to come up with a rational proposal, reasonable, rational, significant proposal, that's something to start out with, and then obviously what actually will happen will depend on everybody getting together and figuring out what we all can agree on. But so what I'm proposing is that every agency or department, Department of State, Defense, Education, so on, all these big departments, take a 10% cut, and that way. And by the way, my plan will save over $200 billion a year, $225 billion a year, something like that. Okay, so every department will take a 10% cut, and simply that's not just about waste, fraud, and abuse. That's about setting priorities and figuring out what's more important and less important, and cutting out less important things. So every department should be able to take a 10% cut. And certain departments, I think, can survive or can handle a 20% cut. Now let me just mention, the defense budget is something like $700 billion, roughly. A 10% cut would be $70 billion, so that's a lot. Well, that's actually in the ballpark, in the neighborhood of what the Obama administration is talking about just lately in the past few weeks. So to me, I support that. Agriculture, I would cut 20%, and in fact, the budget for the Department of Agriculture is about $150 billion. That's a lot. Of that $150 billion, $80 billion is for food stamps. It's under agriculture. I think food stamps can be reformed simply by tightening up on the requirements. Income testing and preventing cash withdrawals and all this sort of thing. We can tighten up a lot on that. And also in agriculture, direct payments to farmers is a historically outdated program. In education, I'm just picking a few departments here that I think can handle more than a 10% across-the-board cut, so to speak. In education, the budget is, I think, maybe 80 billion, something like that, 70 billion. I think it can handle a 20% cut. Pell Grants have gone up under the Obama administration. They from $4,500 maximum up to like $5,800 or something like that a year. I think let's go back to $4,500. $4,500 is a lot of money, and it'll take you a long way per year for a college education. It won't get you very far at Harvard, but it will get you a long way at UNO. What's wrong with UNO? It's not a bad place. I'm an educator myself, and I'm on the learning community. So I'm very interested in education and aware of some of the things that are going on. In education, in elementary and secondary education, there are 100 individual programs, and that's an enormous amount of duplication. And so, by simply consolidating and combining these programs and giving this money out to, I can't remember, it's many, $40, $50 billion a year. It goes out to, it's spent on these 100 programs within elementary and secondary education. Simply by combining these programs together and giving the money back to the states as block grants, we can save big bucks. Give it to the states, let the states decide how to spend it, rather than have 100 separate programs, for each of which you have to apply separately. That's very inefficient. So anyway, all of these things together, it's $200 billion a year. So that's a lot of money. It's a start in getting the federal budget under control. So I think maybe that's enough of the budget. If anybody wants to, you can have a copy of my 5 or 6 pages plan with more detail on the budget. But so anyway, there are big differences between the incumbent and myself. We have big problems. We need change, and so it's time to make change and get going on this. And as I said, what I'm doing, I'm running for Congress because of this huge deficit. And I'm sure there are people all over the country who, I'm just confident that there are people all over the country doing the same thing, and there's going to be big changes, and we're going to turn things around.